Canadian Cannabis Podcast. Saskatchewan in the house today. Tyler Tryhuba of Orgenics Cannabis. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, Tyler, give us a little taste, man, a little sample about Orgenics Cannabis. Fill us in where you're at, where's everything, a little history about the brand itself, and a little bit about yourself, man. I know what to expect, but let's tell the listeners and viewers about what it's all about.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. And I think Bruce Buffer better be a little nervous about his job after that introduction there. That was awesome. Thank you very much. Orgenics Cannabis, we're a family-owned micro producer based out of Macklin, Saskatchewan. Currently, we are producing Pineapple Express Vice, which we worked on with our neighbors in Saskatoon, Mother Labs. And we're just dropping a new product called Orange Sherbet. It's one of my favorite cultivars. It's a Barney's Farm strain, or the breeders, and brought that in when we got our license. We did our pheno hunt earlier this year and had some great results. So that's it in a nutshell, I guess.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot there too much, man. This shit excites me. I appreciate the time that you're willing to give me once again. So anyone that's viewing in that catches this down the line at all, familiar to the Decolonized Cannabis platform, Tyler joined me back in January. I was in Alberta and Calgary at the time. And then I went on a bit of a hunt. So we connected, we interviewed. Tyler, as he mentioned, had just dropped Orgenics Cannabis, had just dropped the Pineapple Express strain. I searched for it in pre-roll. I had called and texted Tyler a couple of times passing through Saskatchewan and Alberta, followed up on some recommendations to retailers that where the product was available, and it was hot, man. I had a hard time tracking it down. It wasn't until some of the initial excitement, I think, for in the market laid off a bit, I was able to find it here in Manitoba, and I did share a review on it. And it's important too. I wanted to acknowledge it just because I think it demonstrated a number of cool things as far as how the industry progresses for brand building, regardless of which level or caliber, someone might be entering in or maintaining a position in. So we went from that interview, the looking and the communicating, and even through social media. I had acknowledged the one time as far as what I found with the product and shared it out. And your professional response on even helping share that education further. And anyone on my platform had seen it or been able to review it to find out the terpene profile and even further down, like to where further to find the product. And I think it's a great thing, man, because it shows now we're here on the Canadian Cannabis Podcast. And once again, you're launching a new product to line. I know you have some other cool information that I think it's definitely worth people hearing, because it does complement in sync with other guests that we've had and the buildup of the dialogue of every show so far. And a lot of that is the Canadian industry, the backdrop, the regulations that are guiding or binding the buildup of some of these brands when it comes to, say, brand marketing. You know what I mean? Impeding or imposing regulations as it stands, or ironing out the kinks, as I identified it in the description for our video here today. But now we're here either way, host guest, but more of a relationship, a friendship, a collaboration that's built in the business, in the industry, and a trust that obviously what I've set out to do initially and wanting to do in the marketing area, as tricky as scary as it can be for brands, that everything is obviously legit on helping stage that ideal platform where brands like Orgenics Cannabis can kind of get that information out beyond let's say print availability on store shelves, magazines, that kind of thing, like retailer magazines, for example. So I think it's a great opportunity. It's a beautiful thing that we demonstrate that, and then breaking it out even beyond that to the 2022 North American Weed Tour. So really wanting to hone in on the time we have. Some of the information you mentioned to me about what's to come in recent now, like what we can expect right away. And I knew I threw it out there really quickly, might have got you a little excited and taken you startled there. But tell us a little bit about the processing license. Let's hear a little bit about the game change that we're about to see with Orgenics Cannabis. You know what I mean? In the prairies, man, setting it up. Let's hear the fire, baby.
Yeah, so yeah, exciting news we got about 2 weeks ago. Got a processing license. And yeah, this brings some awesome change, especially to our business, as now we're in control of basically the entire process, from cultivation right down to the packaging. And yeah, so now we can ensure that buds are being put in without being broken up. There's been a couple times where humidity packs I found just recently in our 14 gram were missing. And, I'm super, consistency is extremely important to me. We do produce a premium product, and that means it has to be premium packaging too. That stuff cannot be missing. And to have that responsibility on us now is, yeah, super exciting. And it also allows us to collect our own revenue too, before we relied on others to collect our sales without the processing license. And that means they have to pay us, which, yeah, sometimes is a hurdle of its own. So yeah, new exciting stuff coming down the line. Just working on trying to get into Manitoba. Just received everything I needed from the CRA to start working with the Saskatchewan Liquor and Gaming Association. So yeah, I guess I told you earlier about the orange sherbet we have coming down the line, but I forgot to mention we actually are going through just sort of a rebrand, not so much. We really stress the importance of the cure. If you follow any of our socials, you'll see a post here and there that really highlights that. And now we have a minimum standard of 40 days minimum of curing, which I can't wait for people to try. And they thought our stuff was smooth before, which it was just from our curing methods.
Yeah.
It's going to be even better. So that new orange sherbet we're dropping, it was cured for over 50 days. So it will go in that category. And yeah, I can't wait to see what people think.
Now you mentioned the consistency and the importance for you as a brand building, obviously reflecting, I would say confidently, the process requirements for quality assurance measures placed by Health Canada in front of you as a licensed producer from the get-go. And as you're mentioning, it hasn't just been some easy process. And anyone that's caught other episodes knowing that from other LPs coming on, whether they're processors or like cultivators themselves, or ancillary businessmen or retailers that I've talked with, including being a bud tender myself, it's definitely it's not just any cakewalk. So I can imagine what stress that might bring to someone when you mentioned that. I'm glad you're able to acknowledge that on the episode. Totally tip my hat to you for that, man. That's definitely a major move there. Good. That's good.
Thanks. Well, for me, I'll be straight. It's more stressful not having that control over consistency. It kind of puts me at ease when it's all on us. And I know we have a great team, and everyone that's come on board, it's been someone that has quality in mind at the most importance when it comes to our products. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens here.
So the pheno hunt, that's an interesting. How much time did you put in for the orange sherbet that's going to be coming to line to come? Like, how much of a process has that been? Time occupancy for you? I know you dropped Mother Labs in there. Obviously, a major common player. I mean, Mother Labs has come up. I'm going to say you're the fourth guest possibly that's acknowledged working with them. So. Yeah, man, just how about that? How's that pheno hunt process been for you in the industry? Have you looked at anything that guides you along the way? Some at points, let's say, looking at if and whenever the international markets, again, with regulations coming to, like more and more regulations unfolding. We do have the 4-year anniversary review, likely, depending on which regulations, but obviously the changes have already began to happen interprovincially throughout 2022. But yeah, anything that way as far as the pheno hunt that stands out for you when you're looking in the Canadian industry? Are you looking at that international market down the line?
Well, for me, I'd say it's actually more on preference. So I grew every one of our strains besides the cultivar we brought in with Mother Labs, which I'll I'll get to in a sec here. But I brought them all in from when I grew at home prior to having our facility.
All right.
So I had a couple buddies of mine that would come over after, every harvest we get after curing, and we'd try them out. We'd each give our honest opinion on each. And yeah, out of all those cultivars, I brought in my favorite. So for example, like when I did the Pineapple Express, our first one, the reason I chose Pineapple Express, obviously the name carries some weight to it, but it's really, you've had it, so you know exactly what it is. It's uplifting,
Yes.
very energetic. It's makes you creative, and yeah, it's just an overall happy strain. So that's why I started with that one. And during that pheno hunt, that's what I was looking for. Then when we started that cultivar, the first run came in, I think at 18.9% or something. And I found out early on, it's kind of getting better now, but especially early on, THC was king. Anything under 20 was a hard sell. So if you remember Jonathan, when he started sales, like he really had to grind. It was a daily task for me to keep John motivated, just because of this THC stigma going on with retailers. And
Right.
as that product started breaking in, we've had great reviews on our leaflet from even retail store managers when they try it. And yeah, so it's kind of changing. And then, so that's what I did with the Pineapple Express. Then with Vice, we worked with Mother Labs because we could get genetics, and we didn't have to do a pheno hunt. We knew what the performance was. So this was a higher THC strain that they're just telling us about, Vanilla Ice. So we brought it in. Yeah, first one came out, I think 24.9% and 2.6 or 8% terps. But there's other people with Vanilla Ice on the market, so we just rebranded it as Vice. But we did just move away from growing Vanilla Ice. It was really, really difficult to manage, as the stretch on it was just, it was ridiculous. We're fortunate enough to have a lot of inputs in our facility to help manage that. And after topping it 3 times, this is off of a 21-day veg period too. We topped it 3 times, double trellised it, and then during pre-flower really we really shifted to a blue spectrum to try to keep it from stretching. And it like got close to the lights, and light bleaching was constantly a struggle to deal with. So we do have a lot of it still in inventory, nice and cured stuff. And so there'll be some more Vice coming out there. A lot of people really enjoy it. I actually just got a text from one of the managers in Saskatchewan that moved down to Regina that's looking for it. But so anyways, that's how we did our hunt for Vice. Then we popped Orange Sherbet. So during the pheno hunt, I knew the flowering period was roughly similar to our Pineapple Express. So we ran it using the same strategy as our Pineapple Express, nutrient strategy, growing methods, and lighting. And when we sent it to our partner, our laboratory partners, Biocision, I got a call back from Ryan. It's like their head guy there. And yeah, he's super excited. He wanted to tell me on the phone what the results were. So I know I'm going to get the team together. And yeah, we had 5 really good phenos. One stood out quite a bit, pheno 1, which is the Orange Sherbet product we're going to be selling today. It came in at like 29%, over 35% total cannabinoids, 3.3% terps, and then the really cool thing about it was it had a detectable amount of THCV, which I don't know how much you know about THCV, but I believe it's currently being researched with use with diabetes patients, as it's supposedly appetite suppressant. Very cool. So for a guy like me, it gets me excited because the munchies are always something you're trying to combat, and especially for me. Yeah, and then the actual cool thing about that, there was another pheno that was also a star, but totally different terpene profiles. It was more kind of uplifting. There was a lot of limonene if I'm pronouncing that one correctly, in it. That was its dominant terp. And it came in, I think, 26% and 33% total cannabinoids. So we just rebranded that one because it's just something you just can't let go. And we're going to be calling that one Sunrise Sherbet. So that'll be
Cool.
That's the first time I ever mentioned that cultivar. We're hoping to have that one out probably later November, as the harvest for will be in October. So actually, now thinking about it, it'll be December.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, man. That's a lot of tracks laid for sure. Crazy.
Yeah, the pheno hunt, it's probably my favorite thing to do at the facility, especially in the legal market. When I grew before Orgenics, you would go off of just your eye, right? And generally now it's pretty close to what your eye was telling you at the facility. But I didn't have pheno 1 as mine for the best cultivar just based off my eye. There's another cultivar that was a lot more frosty that you would think would have more cannabinoids and terpenes, and it didn't. It was actually our lowest one, which is something. But yeah, so it's exciting to do it legally when you can get exactly the data you need to know exactly what's in your plant. So yeah, we got one going on right now. Can't disclose the strains yet. There's 2 of them. But yeah, it's wild, especially the same strain, the different growth throughout the pheno. So yeah, pheno hunting is, like I said, probably my favorite thing to do right now.
It sounds fantastic, like thrilling, man. How not really, especially when it comes to working with the genetics behind the industry, because you've kind of acknowledged that too. It's the rebranding, which is very, that alone as well, and it's about strategizing and maneuverability, because there are strains. I mean, you can find at particular retailers that are plentiful, so to speak, across the brand board. So you kind of get your pick on, maybe up to 5 brands dropping a particular strain. So I think that's fantastic. And obviously, if you're kind of identifying that along the way in the pheno hunt, is the supply chain is obviously from the top down, or however effect you want to look at that, or full circle, kind of adapting to that customer responsivity as well to availability and how people are shopping. So when you mentioned the THC stigma, that how that was impacting brands right off the bat, without proper, let's say, or without a stringent education system in place for even bud tenders or whoever, right?
How up in that in some cases. I've talked to a purchaser just a couple of weeks ago who still on the fence about bringing our product in, as they're looking for high THC, like 25 plus,
right?
Which our Pineapple Express will never touch. I mean, we do everything by the book. We don't like to skew our tests. If it's 21, 22, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the results. And for me, that's why I really try to put the importance on the cure out there, because I think about back when I was growing at home, and my mentor at the time, she grew for years, a cancer survivor. That's when she started growing, and very knowledgeable lady. And all those black market legacy growers really honed in the importance of the cure. Don't even smoke it if you just wasted all your efforts on just flash drying, 4-day drying periods, and packaging it out there. And this purchaser wanted high THC and freshly harvested.
Right.
I didn't say anything back to them. Keep the relationship open. I don't need to be the Mr. Right or whatever, but it's mind blowing to me. Like fresh. You want fresh? Like that doesn't make sense to me as someone who uses cannabis. So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, and disheartening almost to one extent if that supply, let's say as a retail store owner shopping the market that way, then let's hope that the bud tenders, right, and store management is not necessarily dealing with customers that way, right? So I think it's important, especially to get it past there, the in-store education available to foot traffic as well to staff is kind of a big part of it. And like the show itself, the platform entirely is what it stands for. The education behind the scenes, and really what to expect when you want to look at brands like anything that's coming out of Orgenics Cannabis and beyond the grow. And I know, as you're trying to break into the Manitoba market, the role I have with Pot Life Cannabis and Vape Shop, man, I definitely would encourage you to reach out to Amon and Bob there, because I know that's kind of we are looking at wanting to break into everywhere we can, right, and kind of see where we can collab. So following up that way, I'd be happy to be more than happy to be selling some of your product in the next couple of months for sure. That would be a wild thing. But you touched on some things in answering and sharing that fantastic journey about the pheno hunt and what it's been like for you, what it's done to help solidify your brand now moving forward, when quality assurance is the name of the game, so to speak, and kind of establishing that, harnessing that, wanting to move forward. There's a couple of things I wanted to discuss when you mentioned, so going from home grow, rec grow, personal to becoming a brand in the Canadian scene. How has the recreational grow licensing been? I'm not too familiar with that for Saskatchewan. So is Saskatchewan participating in the 4 plants per household? Is that a federal right that citizens are?
I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I'm not 100%, and something might have changed, but last time I looked into it, yes, I believe 4 plants.
Awesome. Yeah. So in Manitoba here, I think a lot of people are excited, as well as with Quebec. We have a group here. The Toba Grown Squad is getting ready to gear out to Quebec next week, and the Federal Supreme Court of Canada trial taking place for Manitoba's 4 plants per household right to grow recreationally, as well as in Quebec. So that is dialogue as well, kind of building up, because we're the last of the bunch, so let's hopefully we're looking at 2023 as a nation, coast to coast, as a nation participating in those wonderful that wonderful process. And you kind of touched upon that when we talk medical grow or home grow, personal grow, beyond just the thrill of growing and falling into that stereotype, as well as, or as it stands of just being a grow. I think the connectivity as it stands for some people, and even the soothing effect for the gardening component of
for sure.
So it's an exciting time, definitely, for all of that.
But it's more relaxed, and then going, and especially the facility when you got a whole whack of plants to do, and just sitting there defoliating, it's almost therapeutic, I'd say. And my employees would definitely attest to that.
And you've demonstrated look at what the ability you've demonstrated, like 100%. What I'm trying to explain here right now, you've demonstrated that. So the experience you gained in actually applying, education to the process, and really absorbing, connecting with your plants, all of the, like, learning the science behind it all. And then here today, you're talking about pheno hunting. You know what I mean? And 4 strains in the Canadian market, man. So viewers and listeners and myself, it's very important to hear that type of story come from yourself. So I really appreciate that, man. That's cool stuff for sure.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And it's important, especially for the growers at home. Like, you go online, there's some great content, but there is a whack of nonsense. And sometimes it is tough navigating that information when there's so much conflicting views on certain stages, I guess you'd say. Like recently, I'm sure you've heard of the flush before.
Like in the process of
like flushing your plants, like not giving any nutrients, just pH water, and it's supposedly supposed to make your product smoother. Well, I don't know, probably it was over a year ago, I stumbled across a study and proved that to be complete nonsense, as a myth. And actually, flushing your product, you take away some cannabinoid and terpene profiles. So you gotta be careful what sources you're using, for sure.
Good to know, man. Very good to know. Yeah, I've seen that discussion come up in some of the online subscriptions that I have, for sure. It's been, and another, again, as far as the experiment, the R&D that's been happening and taking place. So different spectrums or, sectors and markets of the industry. But you mentioned the blue lighting. So when you were with the vanilla ice, is the blue light grow, was that part of the Vanilla Ice time frame, or are you moving forward with blue lighting? How is the lighting, and like which other parts of the like have you adapted or looked at where significant impact seems to be playing a part? Or I mean, the technology and the science behind the results, the numbers coming out, like how let's maybe talk for a few minutes of how
Sure.
important that has been. Yeah.
It's been the most important. So we spent a lot of capital on our facility, our little micro. It's almost 100% automated through a PLC. So that way we really can hone in and optimize each strain. So all our lights have spectrum control, so we can customize what spectrum we give them. So with Vanilla Ice, we took away the red because that has shown to help stretch with the stretch of the plants, like it gives it more stretch. It's also a major portion of the flowering stage. So we slowly introduced it with more of a blue spectrum, blue light being used for vegetative growth, to really try to keep the plant from stretching. But that one, it's genetics. Sometimes you can try everything, but genetics are genetics, and it's going to do what it wants to do. So
it's a monster.
Yeah. But yeah, with that PLC, it's awesome because we have real time data and we can trend everything. And like I said, we spent a whack of money, so we have a really controlled environment. We can control temperature between 0.5 degrees Celsius, humidity between 5%, CO2 to like 5 ppm. And then we also have supplement UVB lighting, which depending on the cultivar, we'll introduce at different times. Always at near the end of flower, because UVB is stressful to the plants, but it really makes cannabis produce more trichomes as they're protecting themselves from UVB lighting.
Cool.
So yeah, it's cool. I mean, growing cannabis there's a lot to know, but it's definitely a lot of fun, and yeah, it's interesting. You learn something every day.
I appreciate the lesson today, Tyler, man. That's something else. Definitely some cool things. I've had guests on in other episodes for sure, talked about some cool stuff, but definitely what you've acknowledged here today should be a reflection, I think, for anyone to get a good idea right off the bat as to what to expect in the quality of your product, regardless of the strain. I mean, you've acknowledged obviously in very short time that from the get-go till present, it's been very much a lot of R&D and adaptation to satisfy that the needs of the market, and then obviously that compassion of a grower yourself and the connection to your plants and wanting your product to represent that 100%. So definitely super thrilled that you were willing to reconnect again. It's always a roller coaster, man. And I'd say in 9 months since interviewing you 9 months ago, it's obvious that you've excelled, right? You've taken some of the right steps in however in repositioning and
a roller coaster to this point for sure. Definitely a little gray on my beard, but
yeah.
The joys of being an entrepreneur, I guess.
So I will definitely be following up moving forward in the episodes as they come through, as we kind of stick around in the prairies for the next few episodes, breaking it out again to the coast and following up. We've had some cool dialogue break out through these episodes, and then in behind the scenes, a lot of the following up. So anyone, again, becoming more familiar, as not much unfamiliarities with what I launched and what I wanted to do, finally coming full circle to some of those opportunities. So bringing in the culture, the music, the food, the weed, looking at festivals, as well as regulations changing in the federal backdrop that are allowing me an avenue to try to, again, to break into that market or say level up, as some of the brands coming on are obviously doing in their specialization. So I definitely expect to see Flourish Ventures Limited and Decolonized Cannabis at more events across Canada throughout the 2023 summer festival season as we prepare for that down the line. What I'll be looking at now is cool things like Tyler and I connected prior to the episode. And I'll be looking at it a little bit more in depth because of some of my involvements here in Manitoba, which is in Indigenous cannabis and not segregating or separating that in any kind of dialogue. It's just a part of the Cannabis Act, as we know, as Tyler would know as an LP, as I would know as an educated individual in the cannabis industry. It's just what it is. What it is. There's on reserve and off reserve production, and that discussion will impact obviously retailers and LPs across the country as again regulations change. So I know what I'll be looking at over the next week or so as far as some of the stories go that I want to look at, publications, looking at the industry. Some of it will be a recap and a revisit to information I shared as my involvement with Indigenous Bloom as an author, as well with Respect My Region. And that's going to be inclusive to moving ahead with blogging and vlogging media packages. So following up with brands like Orgenics, Tyler, helping you to break stigmas, man, and to get the story out and break those stereotypes. And again, beyond some of what's been mainstream cannabis brand marketing opportunities for brands up until recently, and staying on top of that, man, so that I can position everything very appropriately for the most successful 19 plus educational platform that we can offer. So in wrapping it up, other than plugging all of those great things in there in short time, I'm going to leave it up for you. Please share a bit of a conclusion, anything that you want to recap real quickly for a what to expect, anyone you want to plug that you're affiliated with at this point. And other than the video description, where people can follow up and find you directly, Tyler, that's what it's all about. Let everyone know where you're at, man. And again, appreciate your time today. Take us home, man.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, you can find information about Orgenics and our products on www.orgenicscannabis.com, our Instagram at Orgenics Cannabis. We're also on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Again, thanks for having me. Looking forward to seeing what's to come. Definitely going to have you down or up for a tour at our facility when you come to Macklin. And I'm going to have to send you some of our other products for you to try as well. Thanks again for doing that review on our journals. And I'm very interested to see unbiased review for sure of our new stuff.
Excellent. Talk again soon, man.